I'm Ken Wood, and I'm running the Interactive Systems Group here at Microsoft Research Cambridge. And our remit is generally to sort of explore the interplay between physical and digital artifacts, sort of keeping the kind of human user in our minds at all times. So, looking at things from the sort of user down rather than the technology up. And in particular, we're interested in the sort of non-desktop type platforms, so things like wearable computing, ubiquitous computing, that kind of thing.
Do you have an example of a type of device that would fit into that area?
Yeah, one example is the so-called SenseCam, which Lindsay Williams, who built it, will tell you more about at some other time. But SenseCam is essentially a wearable camera, and Lindsay can tell you all about the actual technology behind that. It has a number of sensors in it, for instance, to work out when are opportune times to take photos. But from the sort of larger picture, we're using that as a way to explore the notion of passive capture of a sort of daily photo record of your life. The idea is that you sort of put this thing on, you wear it all day, and you don't even have to think about it, and it's just taking this sort of photo journal of your day. And I can give you one example of a sort of quick clip of a few of those photographs.
So does this fit in with other technologies as well? SenseCam is just one part. You're wearing this, it's capturing data. That data obviously gets stored elsewhere, maybe on a PC or something. So are there other research technologies around filtering those images and doing something interesting with that?
Absolutely. I mean, we're actually working jointly with the guys at Microsoft's Bay Area lab, Jim Gemmell and Gordon Bell. But they have a project called My Life Bits, and it covers exactly those ideas. What do you do with the large volume of information that we already get? Emails and phone calls and web pages and home videos and TV shows and everything else. And SenseCam essentially just gives you another part of the problem, as it were, another bit of information that we have to deal with. And so we're actually working with them to say, well, how does having sensor annotated photographs, how does that change the problem? How can we take advantage of that to make it easier for you to sort of browse through your life's record, that kind of thing. So we are working with them on that.
Okay. So what else is your group working on? Any kind of core technologies that will filter back into real products that we're going to see from Microsoft?
Hopefully, yeah. One of the projects that we're doing is called Zcast, and it's about data casting, which is sending data over broadcast networks like TV networks and radio networks. In a way, it's kind of like the spot watches that you may have heard of. You've actually got one, right? But it's but much higher bandwidth. So we're doing data casting over digital radio in the UK. So the channel that we have to work with there is about 1.5 megabits a second, and we're doing data casting over digital TV here in the UK, and the channel we have there to work with is about 15 megabits a second. So much more data than you can get over to your spot watch. And the idea is to take advantage of that to give added services to both fixed PCs like the Media Center PC, which we're concentrating on, and also mobile devices. So it turns out that there aren't as many digital radio-enabled mobile devices as we thought that there were. So what we're working with now is an iPad with a special digital radio sleeve. But we're in fact talking to various manufacturers who may build more sort of integrated mobile devices with digital radio capability.
Okay, so a couple of questions there. So what kind of data are you putting down onto a media center? So that what kind of services are you putting down there?
Yeah, one of the main things is the sort of obvious thing, which is movies. But the idea is that if you want to have a mechanism for getting a large number of movies to a large number of people, the point-to-point networks that you get over DSL or cable will melt down fairly quickly. Whereas if you use a broadcast medium, which is essentially a sort of physical multicast, as it were, the problems of scale melt away entirely. Right. So the idea is that we've done actually some sort of economic analysis of this, and as soon as you get over just a few movies a month per user, it's very cost effective to use data casting. And from the user's point of view, they get quite a nice experience in that new movies just kind of show up automatically overnight. They get, say, 10 new movies a night that just show up on their hard drives, and then they can either choose to pay to watch them or not.
Right.
Something that I should point out is that that is a very technology-led project, that one. In fact, and that was actually motivated by a couple of the Microsoft product groups. So we're working very closely with them. So this data casting technology may show up in Microsoft products eventually. But from my group's research perspective, we're also taking this sort of user point of view, and we're doing a very general ethnographic study of how people use media in their homes. So we actually have a panel of 12 households that we're doing video diaries with them, ethnographic interviews, to just get a feel for what they do with their current media. And that's media right from newspapers up to media center PCs. And the idea there is for us to sort of look back at this ethnographic material and analyze it to try and see what are the key points where we could do something better, possibly using data casting or possibly using some other sort of technology.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really, I mean, that's kind of the key way that I want this group to work, is by observing people, seeing some sort of need, building some kind of technology to address that need, widely deploying it, at least reasonably widely, so that we can actually really test it out in the wild, and then feed that back into the loop. So we watch how people use whatever we built for them, analyze that, and feed that back into the next cycle of the design.
Right.
And
Do you see that in some cases people might not want that technology? You've already mentioned newspaper. People already perhaps are very comfortable with getting their morning newspaper, maybe reading it on the bus on the way to work or on the tube or whatever else. Do you see that being replaced by a digital device that provides exactly the same kind of media, and people accepting that instead?
That's a very good question. Another study we did is we actually sat on trains interviewing people about the sort of technology which they brought on trains, and did they like it, and was there something that they wish that it could do better? And that's a very good point, because people are very satisfied with paper media in lots of ways. So you actually really have to give them some real added value to make them want to have to deal with the charger and carrying some of the portable device. And we think that there are some cases where that is true. Being able to not having to worry about buying a newspaper before they get on the train, and having a sort of constantly updated newspaper is something which most people said that they would want.
Right.
But there is this balance, and somebody that we recently hired into the group, Abigail Sellon, has done a lot of work in the past on sort of paper versus digital technologies, and with an eye to saying, well, everything digital isn't necessarily good, and we have to keep an eye on how people use paper and what sort of affordances that gives them that we might want to try and replicate or even augment in the digital sphere. All these issues are certainly issues central to the group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Is there anything else you want to tell us about the work you're doing, or the work that your group's doing?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think. Well, there's a number of other projects. We have quite a big project in the area of mobile phones, but this is from the sort of sociological perspective. We have another of our recent hires is a sociologist who's done quite a lot of work on looking at how people use their mobile phones. And one example of this is if you analyze text messaging from the point of view of gift giving. And I mean going back to the real anthropological view of what gift giving means to a wide range of cultures. You can suddenly see why text messaging took off in the rapid way that it has done. And so taking that type of sociological analysis one step further, what we're hoping that we can do is, with richer forms of messaging, as MMS and other forms of sort of video messaging, to try and say how we could design new multimedia messaging protocols to make them fit this pattern of gifting more than they do at the moment. Because the sort of take up so far on MMS hasn't been that great, and we think that there may be some very fundamental sociological reasons for that we hope to be able to address.
Okay.
So that also gives you an idea of the range of things. So in this group we have hardware experts, Lindsay Williams, who you're going to meet, and also a new hardware engineer that we've hired recently. From there, right up to sociologists, and we kind of want to work at both ends of that spectrum, so that we're analyzing what people need from a very high level point of view, and what we can give them from a very low level point of view, and have that meet somewhere in the middle, so that we can put systems out in the wild, evaluate them, and then put them into that loop which I mentioned earlier.
Okay. So do you also have people that look at the way in which people will use this technology? Because if you think of just general PC usage and even simple things like VCRs, people gave up trying to program their VCRs because it was just too hard to use. So do you have people looking at that kind of user interaction and usability aspect of using the technology as well.
Yes, absolutely. That's, once again, Abigail Sullivan is very interested in that area. And she's a clinical psychologist by training, so she has she has expertise in that area. Has been in the HCI field for a long time.
Right.
So absolutely, that's another of the areas that we're interested in.
Okay.